Hey guys, welcome back to Hardware Unboxed. Check out this little beauty I have with me today. This is Gigabyte's new GeForce GTX 1050 G1 gaming version, and that makes it the biggest, baddest 1050 2GB model the company has on offer. So I'm very keen to check it out. Their standard factory overclock card runs at a base clock of 1379 MHz. The Windforce OC model climbs to 1392 MHz, and this fancy G1 gaming model hums along at 1417 MHz. Though truth be told, it will run much faster than that thanks to GPU Boost 3. Gigabyte suggests a typical boost frequency of 1531 MHz, but if you install the Extreme Engine software, the boost clock can be up to 1556 MHz at the click of a button. Getting past all those megahertz, what else does the G1 gaming card have to offer? Well, for what is very much a budget GPU, it seems Gigabyte aren't messing around. The GTX 1050 chip is cooled by a surprisingly large Windforce cooler featuring a pair of 90mm fans. The cooler also features a pair of copper heat pipes and 3 arrays of aluminium fins. This all means it tips the scales at 315 grams, which is very heavy for an entry-level card. The standard marketing lingo is all present here. We have the unique blade fan design, 3D active fans, and ultra-durable VGA components. Still, this is all good stuff. The Gigabyte fans run quiet, and the semi-passive mode is a nice touch, though they can be found on most graphics cards these days. The ultra-durable components are legit, though I can't honestly say how much difference it makes, especially for a lower-end GPU that isn't heavy on power. Still, those looking to overclock should get the most out of this card thanks to its 4+1 power phases. Apparently Nvidia's reference design, which doesn't actually officially exist, at least in the retail channel, calls for a 3+1 design. The naked PCB weighs 193 grams, while the full-length backplate that we're about to look at adds another 94 grams. The backplate looks pretty swanky, though I have to admit I'm not totally convinced by Gigabyte's black and orange colour scheme. I think probably a more safe bet would have been an all-black design, or black and silver. Black and white might have been more the shot. I don't know, I just think that the black and orange won't appeal to everyone as much as a more safe colour choice would, if you will. Anyway, the quality of the backplate is excellent, and once removed we see that Gigabyte has even added a thick thermal pad to help remove built-up heat from the backside of the VRM. I hope you're taking notes, EVGA. I should note that the main heatsink cools the GPU and GDDR5 memory chips, but not the VRMs. Instead, Gigabyte has installed a separate little heatsink here, which seems to do the job well enough, and it collects air from the 90mm fans. Oh, and something else very much worth noting is that this card features, or rather more crucially requires, a 6-pin external PCIe power cable. This is an important point given that the highlight to the 1050 series is the fact that it can run entirely from the power delivered by the PCIe slot. By adding a 6-pin connector that requires a power input, Gigabyte is reducing the card's compatibility with older systems. They of course have models that don't require this connector, but what I want to know is, how much difference does it make, having the ability to potentially feed the GPU an additional 75 watts? That question should be answered by the time we hit the overclocking section of the review. With that, we should probably get on with the testing. Since this is a budget GPU priced well below $200 US, we will be using our Core i3-6100T test machine for this review. This processor doesn't have a problem getting the most out of the GTX 1050, and while we recommend viewers using desktop gaming rigs use the standard 6100 processor, and not the low voltage model that we have, this lower clocked version does do a good job of representing the kind of performance those running older Core i3 and even AMD APU rigs can expect. Anyway, let's blast through the benchmarks. The G1 Gaming isn't even factory overclocked 1% higher than the MSI OC model, yet we see it was 3% faster. Given how GPU Boost 3 works, I suspect this is down to the fact that the Gigabyte card is being fed more power and, more crucially, probably runs cooler, which is something we'll look into shortly. This time we find a 4% boost for the G1 Gaming over MSI's OC model, and that was enough to match the GTX 964 Gigabyte card in Overwatch. Here is a look at how the GTX 1050 G1 plays Overwatch. Please note this footage was recorded on our Core i7 test system using Shadow Play.
Too smart for your own good.
Gears of War 4 ran 4% faster on the G1 Gaming with an average of 56 FPS, opposed to MSI's 54 FPS. It appears as though the Gigabyte card is holding slightly higher boost clock speeds. Testing with Doom showed the G1 Gaming model to be 3 FPS faster when looking at the minimum and average frame rates. Virtually no performance gains were seen in Battlefield 1. That said, it was great to see playable performance at 1080p using the ultra quality settings. Speaking of which, here's a quick look at the Battlefield 1 benchmark pass using the Gigabyte 1050 G1 Gaming graphics card on the Core i7 test rig. Note this is just a quick snippet of the pass and not the entire thing, which lasts 60 seconds. While that extra power connector didn't result in added power consumption, at least nothing worth noting. The G1 Gaming model sucked down 5 watts more, which still makes it very efficient. As for the operating temperature as well, the G1 Gaming is impressive here. It never exceeded 60 degrees in our tests. Very cool stuff, hey. Unfortunately, we were only able to extract another 5% performance out of the G1 Gaming graphics card through overclocking. This took us from 56 FPS in Gears of War 4 to 59 FPS. I probably should point out that that's just 1 FPS more than what the MSI card achieved without an external power connector. The end result was a 100% stable base frequency of 1575 MHz with a boost clock of 1689 MHz. However, when gaming, the core clock frequency was pretty well stuck at 1860 MHz. The GDDR5 memory was also boosted from 7 gigabits per second to 8 gigabits per second. The 1050 G1 Gaming certainly is a punchy little graphics card, though unfortunately isn't without a few flaws. But before we get to that, let's talk about some of the good stuff. The cooler is awesome. Normally you only see coolers of this caliber on higher end cards, such as your GTX 1060s and things that are more expensive than that. Even when overclocked, this G1 Gaming cooler runs extremely quiet, even under maximum load for extended periods of time. And the out-of-the-box performance is good, not mind-blowing, but, you know, good for a 1050. The addition of a 6-pin PCIe power connector is questionable. It doesn't really help at all with overclocking, while it hurts compatibility for no real gain. That's disappointing, and based on what I found here, no 1050 card should really feature an external power connector. This isn't a deal breaker by any means. After all, the vast majority of computers destined for a little gaming action have at least one 6-pin PCIe power connector. The real roadblock here is the price. As I noted a few weeks ago in my Unboxing Boxes series, the price ain't great. I don't really want to rake Gigabyte over the coals on this one though. Graphics card pricing tends to change like the wind. Next week the card could be $10 or even $20 cheaper. That said, right now the G1 Gaming model is priced $30 US above the MSRP, and well, that's TI territory. Meanwhile, their base model factory overclocked, or OC model, is priced at $120 US. And at $20 cheaper than the G1 Gaming, this is the model I would get. Yes, the cooler has been downgraded, but it's still much more substantial than what you'll find on the MSI card we reviewed at launch, and it drops the 6-pin connector. Anyway, I really like the 1050 G1 Gaming, I just don't like the current asking price. That said, the good news for my fellow Aussies is that the G1 Gaming is more competitively priced down under. Whereas US-based shoppers are paying almost 30% more over base models, we're getting stung half as much at 205 Aussie, as the 1050 pricing starts at around 180 Aussie. I should also note that the $180 model is a dinky looking Galax card with a much smaller single fan cooler and a rudimentary 2+1 power phase design. So here in Australia at least, it seems that the 1050 G1 Gaming is actually the card to get, but as always pricing does vary quite dramatically from region to region. Anyway, what do you guys think about Gigabyte's G1 Gaming graphics card? Do you think they should have perhaps not bothered with the 6-pin connector like I do? Let me know in the comments below, I'm always keen to hear from you guys. And keep your lids peeled because there will be a review coming up of the TI model, so the 1050 Ti G1 Gaming graphics card. And we'll see if that delivers any more with that 6-pin connector. Anyway, that's all from me on this one. I'll catch you guys next time.